So I was involved in that project in its early stages, when we were still trying to shape the project and its research direction. I was collaborating with Waitangi Wood and Dean Anderson. And really Waitangi had this wish or this feeling, something very strong in her, that she wanted to change the way we do surveillance and research in science so that we could elevate Maturanga Maori and Mana Whenua into the space.
We focused on data sovereignty and cultural sovereignty and understanding how we can ensure that Mana Whenua, within the context of equity, are able to access their own information and data, or information and data about their taonga or research that's occurring within their respective areas. So the theme originated with a Mātauranga Māori framework. The Mātauranga Māori framework looked at how we can equitably elevate Mātauranga Māori into the science system and Mana Whenua into the research and science space.
This involved a lot of conversation with our kaitiaki that were involved in the myrtle rest and kauri dieback response. And an important aspect that always came out in those conversations was that Mana Whenua and kaitiaki always felt disconnected from the decisions that were made about their land. And they didn't have access to the data or the information that they needed to actually do surveillance on the ground and manage their land. The idea there was really to create a platform where we could have a better sharing of data and information. And that was the case for everyone, for Crown Research Institute, for agencies, but also for Mana Whenua to access the data and the information that they needed to manage their land. But key to this work was also trying to protect the information that needs to be protected or that is sensitive, and to ensure that aspects such as Maori data sovereignty is respected.
So data sovereignty is extremely important to our own communities because it allows us to participate, to engage, to be able to influence. Information and data around, so if I take the example of biosecurity and say myrtle rust, at the moment there are volumes of data and information being generated by agencies and researchers. Māori have no access to that information and data, but as a right, we have the right to make decisions about things that impact on our taonga, on our people, and not having that information and data disadvantages us.
So I came in to kind of initially to support Waitangi with the documentation of the biodiversity management areas, or what we call the BMAs. And so Y and I engaged into a search for all the documents that described these areas. And these are sort of physical areas that were identified through Maori Social Development Act back in the 50s, I think. And basically there is all these descriptions that have been published in the New Zealand Gazette, and they describe the exact boundaries of each one of these BMAs.
When we were working with the information and data, what we realised that one of the key things for that is giving that information and data whakapapa. So in order to recognise the sovereignty of the information and data, we need to recognise its whakapapa back to the whenua, or to the naturescape, or to the water. We looked for different types of ways Māori and non-Māori have described land areas, land management areas. What they do is they allow us to anchor the information and data back to the whenua. So recognising in the first instance the whenua's sovereignty, and then the mana whenua attached to that whenua. In order for us to make good decisions at home, in our place, around our taonga, in order to inform our other people, it's useful for us to actually have the current information and data so that we too can provide those solutions and support to those agencies and groups that are trying to address these issues. And so the Integrated Intelligence Platform is a digital tool that allows us to make those distinctions, separate out the sovereignty and custodian of that information and data in a way that benefits both parties.
You know, it just, the lifespan of data that is only used by the person that collected it is so short. I mean, it's so important, and we put so many resources into collecting data that it should be available to, and especially to the place where it comes from, to the people that is directly involved with.
Yeah, it was impressive as a data analyst. I was never really trained around data sovereignty. It wasn't even something that we had at school or at university. We never mentioned this word. And I think it's something I started to be aware of when I moved to New Zealand, because there are conflicts around this data sovereignty, a different vision with Western data sovereignty and Maori data sovereignty. But I never really included any of this in my work before working into that project. And then being involved in this project and started to work with Maori, I started to realize how important it was. And I started to feel a little shame of not having thought about all those issues before.
We are the Indigenous people of New Zealand. Those taonga and the control, the management, the caretaking or kaitiaki of those things is afforded to us in Te Tiriti o Waitangi. We have an expectation under Article 2. We have sovereign authority over those data, taonga and information as afforded to us by Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and the obligations set in place between the government and mana whenua.
The thing with this, with all this theme of the challenge, what we're really trying is to do new way of research and to find new way of working together. I guess it's really rewarding to be part of that, and I really love the values that are put forward: this respect, kindness, open-mindedness, and yeah, all working towards the same goal. And obviously there are some issues that we need to solve in that path. It's not a linear path, but yeah, it's really beautiful to see all those amazing people getting together with such strong value in the background.